Hey, good evening. It's Penguins Rapid Reaction. I'm Matt Geica. Got to go live after that one. I'm trying to do at least one of these shows per week as of right now, as the surprising Penguins continue their push for an unlikely playoff berth. They've won 4 out of 5, but just barely tonight as they beat the Lightning 4-3 on a late Evgeni Malkin game-winning goal off the setup from Tommy Novak with under 3 minutes to play. Nikita Kucherov thought he tied it for Tampa. I think we all thought he tied it on a brilliant one-time shot from the right wing circle, but instead it was disallowed. The Situation Room in Toronto called down to Tampa to say they detected a hand pass from Brandon Hagel, who otherwise had quite a brilliant game himself. Couple of goals for the 90-point man last year, so you can't say you're surprised by Brandon Hagel whenever he does something like he did tonight for Tampa. He's maybe underrated, but shouldn't be, as he's a known quantity by now. He's one of the reasons the Lightning are once again one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, but the Lightning have dropped 2 in a row suddenly, as they're now 16-9-2. The Penguins, meanwhile, their 14th victory, another win in regulation. They've got all but one of their wins in regulation time so far this year. They're 14-7-5, 8-3-3 as well away from Pittsburgh, as they've won the first 2 of this road trip that has already taken them to Philadelphia, as well as Tampa. They'll be in Dallas on Sunday evening, 6 o'clock Eastern time start, before returning home for a 5-game homestand. So the Pens taking care of business in a major way to start this trip after they had that discouraging 7-2 loss to Toronto this past Saturday. But like I said, they've now won 4 out of 5. They edged Buffalo 4-2 on the night before Thanksgiving. They came from behind from 2 goals down to beat Columbus in overtime, their first OT win of the season after suffering 5 losses beyond regulation. Only felt like 7, but the Pens now do have that 1 overtime win. It looked like they were going to need overtime if they hope to get 2 points tonight, because they blew a 3-0 lead that they had late in the second period. Hagel with a couple of goals. Like I said, Kucherov thought he had one, but he did not. Honestly, the Lightning could have easily had a big lead early in this game, so they're going to be left ruining some missed chances and probably thinking they got screwed over by the NHL head office. But I think it was a hand pass, even though it wasn't intended to be a hand pass from Hagel there in the final, 1 minute when the Lightning had the extra attacker on. So the Penguins, well, I guess deserved, has got nothing to do with it, to quote an old movie. And also, you're allowed to win the games that you, quote unquote, shouldn't win. It's all right. If you have a 3-0 lead, I don't care how you got there, you probably should hang on in regulation. And I guess the Penguins did, even though they had to squander that entire lead before they could, in fact, get the winning goal, which was created by a turnover. Anthony Mantha flagged down an attempted clear by Tampa, tapped it over to Tommy Novak, who found Malkin creeping at the side of Jonas Johansson, the Lightning backup goalie. That was a break for the Penguins, too. They didn't have to see Andrei Vasilevsky, and Malkin jammed it under Johansson from close range. So Malkin gets 2 goals tonight, not to bury the lead as well. Ville Koivunen finally scores. It took him 20-some-odd games in the NHL, including a couple of separate stints this year, but he scored a power play goal in the first period as the Penguins, despite by natural stat tricks count, giving up a couple of expected goals, +2 actually, to the Lightning in that first period. The Lightning were on the power play, I believe it was 6 times in the end tonight. That's way too many opportunities to give a team that has that level of offensive talent. Kucherov scored to start the rally at 18:46 of the second period after Malkin had scored on a breakaway, and Ben Kindle added another power play goal for the Pens. So the Pens scored twice on the power play in a matchup against the number 1 penalty-killing team in the league. So the Pens power play had the advantage there, but they were giving up shorthanded scoring chances, and after the midway point of the game, the Lightning looked like they were skating downhill. And Kucherov in the second, and then Hagel a couple of quick ones in the third to tie it up. A couple of snipes on Tristan Jarry in that third period, who otherwise had a great game. And the first period was just like the first period in Philadelphia. In fact, I didn't think the Pens were that great in Philly. Honestly, they closed really well. A lot of folks were really bullish about the Penguins' effort there. Yeah, they ran away with it in the end. They won it 5-1, and it was convincing in the end, but I thought the Pens were pretty loose early in that game. But their goaltender, their resurgent goaltender, Tristan Jarry, kept them in that game, allowed them to take the early lead. Same thing happened tonight in Tampa. You don't want to lean on that formula too much, but hey, the goalie's part of the team, and the Penguins have had their goalies, including Tristan Jarry, often let them down in recent seasons in big ways. So I suppose turnabout is fair in this case. And even though Jarry probably would have liked to have had that shot from Kucherov back, or at least a second chance at it, the one that apparently tied the game late in the third, he ended up making a save on Kucherov in the final 10 seconds as the Lightning's MVP got around Erik Karlsson with the extra attacker. He was denied, though, on the rush down the left wing side, and the Lightning tried to set up a quick bang-bang play before the buzzer, but they were unsuccessful, and the Pens got the win. So, like I said, 14-7-5, and looking where they're at in the standings in the Metro Division, which is incredibly tight, by the way, even though some teams have played more than others, the Penguins currently sit just 3 points behind the Capitals, and the Penguins have 2 games in hand on the Caps. So the Pens are 1 point behind the Hurricanes, who have played 26 games, just like the Pens have, and Pittsburgh tied with the Philadelphia Flyers, who they just beat the other night, of course, in Philly. The Penguins are also tied with the Devils, who have played 1 more game, and the Islanders, who beat the Avalanche tonight, by the way. But the Islanders have played 2 more games than the Pens. But that's really, I think, trying to nitpick here, because the top 7 teams in the Metro Division are within 4 points. The only straggler is the Blue Jackets, who are 3 behind the 7th place Rangers. But the Capitals are at 36 points. The Rangers are at 32, and almost everyone else is in the middle in that Metro. So the pressure's on to keep pace. It's an unprecedented NHL regular season so far with how tight everything is, and the Metro is the biggest example of that, because there's really no one out of it, despite the Jackets being now 7 points behind the Caps. But they also have a couple of games in hand on the Capitals. So can't even say the Jackets are necessarily out of it. So you just want to keep pace. Just want to keep piling up those points. I thought for a moment tonight that the Pens were going to be lucky to get 1 point out of this game. The Lightning were steamrolling the Pens, to put it lightly, in the third period especially. But the Penguins did, after they allowed that third goal, that's a big caveat, isn't it, as well? But after they allowed that third goal to Hagel to tie the game on the transition play, the Penguins got a foothold in that game. So it was more even after that, but that was a pretty big wake-up call that it took to get them back on their game. They were opportunistic, I guess, is the nicest thing to say about the Penguins tonight. Actually, that game reminded me a lot of the game at Florida earlier this year, when the Pens took advantage of a leaky Sergei Bobrovsky. Also scored a couple of power play goals that night, too. That's been a theme as well. It's been goaltending. It's been the power play. It's been penalty killing, too. And in the end, the Pens only allowed the 1 power play goal on 6 opportunities for Tampa. So I think I would call that a success on that side of the puck as well. So still, the things that have kept the Penguins afloat and kept this impressive start to the season, now extending into the middle third of the season almost, those things continued tonight at whatever they're calling the arena in Tampa. I totally missed on that renaming situation. I used to call it Amalie Arena. We used to call it, what was it, the Ice Palace? I forget what they had as the initial name of that place. But anyway, down in Tampa, where the Pens have had some rough results over the years, and also have had some outstanding triumphs. The 2016 Eastern Conference Final, most notable among those, that Game 6 win still stands out to me as perhaps the most pivotal win for the Penguins in the Crosby-Malkin era. That series, if they would have lost that, who knows how the last decade goes for the Pens. But, of course, they win that. They win Game 7 in Pittsburgh. They take the cup against the Sharks. They win it the next year. You know how the story goes. So this is Penguins Rapid Reaction. Penguins 4, Tampa Bay 3, as these two teams who for a long time were fellow Eastern Conference Titans. Now the Penguins trying to build themselves on the way back up, while Tampa continues to hang on to contender status, despite their loss in the first round to Tampa Bay last year, or to Florida last year, in a series that we all thought, or most of us thought, was going to be competitive. It was not, but Tampa has reloaded. Give the Lightning credit. John Cooper continues to I think, coaches butt off down there. There's a lot of new faces in that Tampa Bay lineup, beyond the obvious guys like your Kucherovs, your Hagels, your Gensels. There's some fresh faces, and maybe some mistakes from those fresh faces late caused the Penguins to go ahead and grab that extra point and drop the Lightning to a regulation loss. In fact, yeah, just looking at the Tampa roster, guys who, unbeknownst to us, would play a big role this year: Curtis Douglas, Pontus Holmberg, Dominic James. We all know about Nick Paul, but he's certainly a supporting guy. Yanni Gord is back in town. Declan Carlisle, Maxwell Crozier, Charles-Edouard Dastu. These are all names on the blue line. Emil Lilleberg. In fact, the 6 players on the blue line with Victor Hedman hurt, it's not exactly a who's who of NHL defensemen, but they've made it work so far, even though Dastu made that crucial turnover trying to swat the puck out of the air. Ended up hitting Malkin with it, I believe. It bounced to Mantha, over to Novak, and then back to Malkin as that line created another even strength goal in an absolutely critical situation to help rescue 2 points for the Penguins. So special teams advantage Pens tonight by the skin of their teeth. Also wanted to talk about the second game for the so-called kid line, or whatever you want to term the line that it's centered by Ben Kindle along with Lee Koivunen and Rutger McGroarty. I think McGroarty was a little bit less obvious tonight. He took a shot on net from extremely far out when he could have closed in and at least challenged Jonas Johansson a little bit more. So maybe some nerves for McGroarty, just a little overeager to try to get shots on goal. But overall, I've been pleased with his return to the lineup. That has allowed players to slot in where they, quote unquote, should be, I would say, on the Penguins depth chart. Guys like Blake Lizotte, Boko Imama, Connor Dewar especially, they can all play on the fourth line and give the Penguins a little bit more balance if McGroarty and Kindle continue to play well together, which they weren't quite as good as they were. They weren't quite as effective as they were against Philadelphia on Monday, but still, I would say no reason to break up that line or even touch any of the forwards on the Penguins' top 3 units as we continue to see Kevin Hayes get playing time in the top 6. I think it works for the most part, along with Crosby and Rust. Gives that line a little more of a puck possession mindset. I'm all right with that. Even though Hayes, I think, looked behind the pace tonight. This was, to be clear, this was much more of a challenge than the Flyers game was. Even though the Flyers have been solid so far this season, some might say surprisingly good, just like the Penguins under their new head coach and Rick Tocchet. So I guess a similar storyline ends in that way. But the Lightning have been playing better for longer. Obviously, they have that longer track record over many, many years. So I was really circling tonight, and honestly, I was a little disappointed that Vasilevsky didn't play for the Lightning because I wanted to see the Pens against the Lightning in their current top form. Like I said, Hedman's out, but for the most part, their forward group is quite spectacular when it gets it rolling, and we saw that tonight. The Penguins do pass that test, at least in the result category. You look at the underlying numbers, though. Tampa Bay, according to Natural Stat Trick, outshot the Penguins or out-attempted the Penguins 73-51, counting all situations. Scoring chances 42-28. That's a lot of scoring chances. High danger chances. These can be a little more subjective, but Natural Stat Trick had the Lightning with 21 of those and just 8 for the Pens. But they had the expected goals at not as lopsided as you might think, although the Lightning were credited with almost 5 expected goals, 4.8, while the Pens had 3.2. So the Penguins still did quite well despite limited quantity of shots. They did lead the shot counter for a little bit, but Tampa Bay started to turn that table in about the middle of the second period, definitely late in the second period. So the Lightning turned it on for sure, and the Penguins were on their heels. They weren't finding ways to play with the puck in the Lightning zone. The Penguins this year have been really effective off the rush, but that can be a gift and a curse because I feel like they have not strung a ton of shifts together in the attacking zone. They did it quite well at Philly, I will say that. So keep an eye on that sort of thing. but they just might be a rush team. And I think perhaps part of that is the fact they're trying to stay more connected on the breakouts. They're trying to give more options on the rush, it seems like, and there are just naturally more options available with the D and the forwards closer together than they were under the Mike Sullivan system. At least that's what my eyes are telling me here. So I think that's why they're a better rush team, but that has not helped them to spend a lot of time in the O zone. So they got worn down tonight, and they were beaten both in the zone and also on the counterattack, as we saw on the third Tampa Bay goal. So it's no shame, no embarrassment to get outshot and outchanced by this Lightning team. I'll put it that way. But the Penguins are not necessarily fixed, or they're not perhaps playing as well as we've seen them this season, even though they have won 4 out of 5. I did like their game overall in the last 2 periods against Philadelphia. Second period, pretty good tonight for the Pens, but the first and the third, the Lightning had the clearer edge. So, well, the challenge continues as Pittsburgh will take the jet on down to Texas to play Dallas, another team that is quite hot as of late, and a team that should be considered, obviously, a Stanley Cup contender as they're battling to try to stay within earshot of the Colorado Avalanche. The Stars actually are staying within earshot. They're 7-1-2 in their last 10, and they're just 3 games back of Colorado for first place in the Central Division and the entire NHL. So the challenges do continue apace for the Pens. Like I said, 6 o'clock face-off on Sunday in Dallas before they come home. And then the schedule does lighten up, both in terms of home versus road and also in terms of the opponents. So one more really tough one to get through here, and then they'll come back home to take on the young and also surprising Anaheim Ducks. They've got Montreal. The Habs have flattened out a bit lately. They've got San Jose, another young team that might be overperforming its underlying numbers. They've got Utah, and then they've got Edmonton on that homestand. So Edmonton won to circle for sure on the 16th, but the Pens will be home for a little over a week in which they will play. That's going to end up being 5 games in 8 days. So the schedule gets more constricted as well. So that makes this type of late reversal that the Penguins were orchestrating tonight in Tampa all the more critical as they get 4 points out of an available 4 points on the first 2 games of this road trip. So, hey, look, no need to apologize for it. I know the Pens aren't going to be happy with how they allowed Tampa to dictate terms, but they do score 1 more than the Lightning, and they escape Tampa Bay with the help of the NHL Situation Room, with the victory intact and with a regulation win, which has been their forte this season. So you got to like that if you're trying to gauge how good is this Penguins team. Like I said, they're good at a few things. They're good at special teams. They've gotten great goaltending, even though Artur Shilovs has fallen off lately. Tristan Jarry taking that number 1 spot, it appears, rather convincingly. And they've created a good amount of 5-on-5 offense, both real goals and expected goals, even though the real production, the tangible production, has fallen off in the last couple of weeks. They continue to be one of the better teams for expected goal ratio and expected goal production at 5-on-5. So I think a lot of that comes off the rush. Crosby and Malkin staying as not just viable NHL players, but above average and in some cases star-level NHL players. And Malkin was in vintage form, I thought, tonight. The breakaway goal was electrifying. And then, of course, Malkin's also been known over his career just lying in the weeds, then all of a sudden popping up in a prime scoring area, as he did there, to take that pass from Novak and rifle it in. And that ended up being the game winner. Well, thanks for watching Penguins Rapid Reaction. Trying out some new equipment here tonight as well. So that was also the reason for going on the air here without much fanfare. But hope to talk to you next time. Looking forward to the Pens game at Dallas on Sunday, 6 o'clock face-off. They go for 3 in a row, trying to sweep this road trip. When it was 3-0 in the second period tonight, I thought, hey, what an opportunity here with that game against Dallas looming. And then I thought in the third period, especially after Hagel tied it, just hang on and get a point and try to avoid another ignominious loss from 3 up would have been the second time they lost in regulation. Went up by 3 going into the late stages of the game, just like they did against Toronto a couple of weeks back. But it did not happen. They avoided that disaster, and they do emerge victorious from the Gulf Coast of Florida. Thanks again for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe, and also sign up for the notifications on my YouTube page here, so you know when I'm going live with these rapid reaction shows, or really anything else that might pop up along the way. But hoping to do more of these, and also going to welcome some more guests in the future, even though we did go solo tonight. All right. God bless. Have a great rest of your week. Have an awesome weekend. And I'll talk to you next time on Penn's Rapid Reaction.